I had never heard of the village before. No one I knew had. It wasn't on any map, not even on Google. But after my grandmother passed away, I found an old letter tucked away in the pages of her worn-out diary, faded, brittle, and scented faintly of sandalwood. It mentioned a place called Pathramura. No address, just a strange line. Go only when the crows call, and never after dusk. Curiosity gripped me harder than common sense ever could. I had been feeling detached for months, floating through city life like a ghost. So, when I got a week off work, I packed a small bag and took the next train, heading in that general direction. I had to switch between buses, then hitch a ride on a rickety van that dropped me off miles away from the main road. From there, I walked. The jungle seemed to swallow me the deeper I went, the air thick and unnaturally still. It was the kind of silence that made your heartbeat sound like thunder. I arrived at the village in the early afternoon. A single wooden arch stood at the entrance, half rotted and covered in black thread and red cloth strips tied into knots. The place didn't look abandoned, but it didn't feel alive either. The huts were old but well kept. Smoke curled out of chimneys, and goats grazed nearby. But the strangest thing was the people. They saw me, yet didn't seem surprised. No one asked who I was or why I had come. They just stared for a beat too long, then looked away. An elderly woman offered me water without saying a word. A child peeked from behind a tree, but quickly disappeared when I waved. The silence wasn't total. There were the sounds of nature, but there was a hollowness in the air, as if the village itself was holding its breath. That night, I stayed at a small guest hut offered to travelers, though I wondered how often anyone actually came. It was tidy and sparse. There was no electricity, just oil lamps. The man who showed me in never returned after handing me a key and a small bowl of rice. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside. Software bare. They circled the hut slowly, twice, then stopped. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. Then came a low whisper, not words exactly, but a sound, like someone exhaling into my ear from behind the wall. I looked out the window, but saw only the shadows of trees swaying gently. Or was something swaying among them? The next morning, everything was normal. Or at least it seemed that way. The villagers were up early, going about their routines. No one mentioned the footsteps. No one asked if I'd slept well. But I started to notice things. All the dogs in the village, there were at least 6, never barked, not once. The birds never flew above the tree line, as if something kept them grounded. And there was a tree near the center of the village, large and ancient, with ropes hanging from it like vines. Except they weren't vines. They looked like braided hair. I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe rural life just felt different. Maybe the air really does strange things to your head when you're surrounded by thick woods and long silences. But then I met him. A man, middle-aged, standing alone near the tree with the ropes. His eyes were milky white, not blind, just blank. He turned his head toward me slowly and said, in a voice that sounded dry and hollow, "You shouldn't have come when the crows were silent." I hadn't heard a single crow since I got there. Not one. The man's words echoed in my mind long after he had walked away. You shouldn't have come when the crows were silent. I stood there frozen for what felt like minutes, staring at the old tree, the wind gently swaying those strange, rope-like strands. A tight knot formed in my stomach. I wanted to leave, but something, Curiosity, fear, maybe even the sense that this was bigger than me, kept me there. That evening, I wandered the village again, hoping to find someone who would speak openly. But the moment I asked about the man near the tree, the villagers shut down. They either looked away or mumbled something about old spirits best left undisturbed. One elderly man, who had been weaving baskets near a fire, gave me a cautious look and whispered under his breath, "They watch at night. From the woods, you stay inside." That night, I didn't stay inside. Just after midnight, I heard a faint rhythmic sound, like humming, low and mournful. I peeked out the window. The village, which seemed so dead by day, was now eerily alive. Figures, draped in dark cloth, moved silently through the open paths, heading toward the dense tree line. No torches, no light, just shadows in motion. Compelled beyond reason, I grabbed my flashlight and followed from a distance, keeping to the edges. The group moved like one being, no talking, no hesitation, almost as if they were gliding. They passed the ancient tree and vanished into the woods. I hesitated, then stepped forward, every branch crackling under my foot, feeling like a scream in the silence. I must have walked 15 minutes through the dense forest when I saw a faint orange glow ahead. Crouching behind a thick tree trunk, I caught sight of them. A clearing opened before me, lit with small fires placed in a perfect circle. The villagers, or at least some of them, were kneeling around something. At the center was a tall cone-shaped structure made of twigs, cloth, and what looked like bones. Human-sized, hanging from its frame, were small dolls made of straw, hair, and teeth. Real human teeth, unmistakably. A figure stood in front of it, taller than the others, wearing a mask that looked like the face of a crow. Beak, sharp and glossy, black eyes hollow. He began to chant. It wasn't a language I recognized. Harsh syllables, almost bird-like in rhythm. The villagers repeated after him in unison, swaying slightly. Then, two younger men dragged something toward the center. At first, I thought it was an animal, but when I saw the bare arms, the tangled black hair, I realized it was a person. A girl, unconscious or pretending to be. My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to run, but my legs betrayed me. I watched in horror as the crow-masked leader raised a long blade, primitive and jagged. The chanting grew louder, frenzied. The flames around the circle flared without warning, and just as he brought the knife down, I screamed. Not out loud, no, but inside my mind, something tore. The flashlight in my hand flickered, even though I hadn't turned it on. And suddenly, every masked face turned toward the forest, toward me. I ducked, ran, branches scratched my face, thorns ripped at my clothes, but I didn't care. I could hear movement behind me, fast, light, like footsteps that weren't touching the ground. Something whistled past my ear. A sound, like feathers slicing through air. I didn't look back. When I burst into the village, it was silent, not the quiet of sleep, but dead, suffocating stillness. The huts were dark, the fires were out, and yet I could feel eyes on me, from somewhere. I stumbled into my hut, bolted the door, and pressed my back to it. My chest heaved with terror. Then I noticed something that hadn't been there before. A small object on the table. A dollar, straw, human hair, one tooth, crudely sewn into its mouth, and around its neck a red thread, just like the ones tied to the arch at the village entrance. I threw it across the room, my breath catching in my throat. That was when I saw something on the wall, scrawled in a thick, dark substance, a symbol, roughly drawn, yet deliberate. It wasn't there when I had left. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I sat in the corner, eyes fixed on the door, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. Outside, I heard whispers, not one voice, but many, layered, overlapping. And that sound again, feathers rustling. Only now, it was right outside the window. Just before dawn, the whispers stopped. When I finally stepped outside, the village looked exactly as it had the first day. Normal, peaceful. The trees still stood, unmoving. No signs of the ritual, no footprints, no fires. The only clue that any of it had happened was the doll, still lying in the corner of the hut. And now, the crows had returned. I could hear them cawing in the distance. Loud, angry, warning. I decided to leave. No more curiosity, no more waiting for answers. That morning, as the sun struggled to break through the grey mist hanging over the village, I packed my bag with shaking hands. I didn't bother telling anyone. Not that they would care or stop me, but something deep inside warned me. You don't leave Pathrumura after witnessing the ritual. Still, I had to try. As I made my way to the village gate, I noticed something chilling. Every house had its door shut tight. Windows were covered with dark cloths. Not a single villager in sight. It felt like they were hiding from me. Or maybe for me. The wooden arch that marked the entrance was different now. The red cloths and black threads were gone, replaced by something far more disturbing. Animal skulls tied to the top beam. Fresh blood dripping from them, painting streaks down the wood. My legs froze, my heart hammering. But I couldn't turn back. I pushed forward into the jungle path, retracing my steps as best I could. The air grew heavier the farther I went, like it was pressing against me. Sounds became distorted. The cawing of crows twisted into what almost sounded like human wailing. I ignored it, moving faster, stumbling over roots and thorns. And then, the trees changed. I swear, the path I had taken before was gone. I marked that turn. I knew I had. But now every direction looked the same. Trees twisted in unnatural ways, branches reaching down like arms. I spun around, trying to calm myself, but the forest didn't feel right. It felt aware. That's when I saw the man again. The one with the milky eyes. He stood several feet ahead, barefoot, unmoving. I swear, the path I had taken before was gone. I marked that turn. I knew I had. But now, every direction looked the same. Trees twisted in unnatural ways, branches reaching down, like arms. I spun around, trying to calm myself, but the forest didn't feel right. It felt aware. That's when I saw the man again, the one with the milky eyes. He stood several feet ahead, barefoot, unmoving. You can't leave, he said softly, voice dry as dust. You were chosen the moment you stepped in. I took a step back. I don't want to be part of this. I didn't come for any of this. He tilted his head. But your blood remembered. That's why I called you home. My breath caught. He reached into his robe and held something up. An old photo. My grandmother, young, standing under the same village arch. And next to her, that same man, not looking a day younger, not a wrinkle more, not human. Your grandmother broke the ritual once. We have waited since. Blood must answer blood. I ran. I didn't care where I was going, I just needed to get away. Branches tore my skin, my lungs burned. But then, I saw it. The road. The same one where the van had dropped me off. I was out. I sprinted, screaming when I saw a truck passing by. The driver slammed the brakes as I banged on the door, breathless, bloodied, wild-eyed. He helped me in without a word. We drove in silence for a long time. Only when we were miles away did he finally glance at me and say, Pathramura, huh? Lucky you made it out. I nodded, staring ahead, but something wasn't right. His hands on the wheel. His nails were black. His wrist bore a red thread. He smiled, just enough for me to see a tooth. A sharp, rotting tooth. I turned slowly to look at his eyes in the mirror. They were milky white. And behind us in the distance, I heard the crows stop calling.